Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Kilcullen. I am the founder of Exploring the Wonder Years. Check out my website, www.exploringthewonderyears.com. And today I am here with
Jay Cologne
for episode number 2 of our Exploring the Wonders of Family Partnerships, Co-Parenting specifically. I don't think I mentioned this to you, Jay, but someone gave some feedback the other day. Thank you for that. We're gonna just thank you all for the feedback we have received. But someone told me the other day that this is not only for co-parents. This is just the parenting kind of talk that we're having, which I think was really good feedback.
That's actually pretty good. While we're on the subject, we want to be grateful and thankful for all the positive feedback that we have received from all you folks out there. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So something that came up in the feedback at least twice, people were saying that we make this look really easy. So am I an easy partner to co-parent with? Tell me about it.
Easier now than then.
Now because as an adult?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so something that came up for us as we were planning what we would say for episode number 2 is, we've been in this game for 22 years. And so I don't think, and Jay, jump in if you don't believe in what I'm saying, we could have had this conversation maybe even 10 years ago.
Probably not. I agree.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the breakup, right? We're going to let people into our business a little bit, talk about vulnerability. Our parents told us don't talk our business outside the house, but here we are anyway. We're going to talk about significant others while co-parenting. And then we've received a number of questions that we're going to identify during this time.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's start. What happened between us?
Well, to summarize, we were in a 15-year relationship, and 7 of those years, we had a child together. After our breakup, life transpired. A different chapter in life. Yeah.
And I want us to, I think, really be transparent as far as like things that we went through that led us to the breakup. Anyone who has been in a very serious relationship knows the ups and downs that come along with that. And so anything that you can imagine that happened in a relation, or anything that you can imagine happening in a relationship happened in our relationship. Would you say that? Like
I agree.
We had a lot of stuff that happened. We lived through a lot of heartbreak, a lot of connecting back to the question that we had last week, a lot of disappointments that we had to
overcome.
Yeah, overcome because, again, like our child didn't ask to be born into this relationship. And so we needed to figure our shit out.
Pretty much.
Right? All right. So I think one of the questions that we had is thinking about the top 3 things that were important to us as far as co-parenting together. And I can start if you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as far as co-parenting and the 3 most important things, I would say, like you mentioned, we have a common cause. Our common cause was to raise our child the right way. Yeah. That was probably the leading factor for me, and accepting that we've officially broken up and moving forward to raising our child.
Yeah. One thing I know in our conversation we were trying to really highlight like what was the that relationship truly had to end, right? And so there's just with any relationship, there's a loss that happens, but we needed to close that chapter so that we could truly just move forward as co-parents,
Correct.
right?
And that obviously takes time.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, it took me maybe 3 years more or less. Obviously after we broke up, I dated, but I never took anyone seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I think that healing, one of the things that comes up for me is healing is really important, right? And finding that time to mourn the loss of the relationship and go through that healing process. And then the two other things that I think come up for me is forgiveness and acceptance.
Well, forgiveness is needed, obviously.
Yeah.
And we have to accept that we're no longer in a relationship and we've come to terms to raising a child.
Yeah. Yeah. And so something else that comes up for me about acceptance is really accepting you as the other co-parent or the parent that I'm working with. Really accepting you as a human.
Interesting. Can you enlighten me more on that?
Yeah, when I think about some of the feedback that we've received over this past week, I've been really thinking about what is that thing that has really worked for us. And I think we often throughout our time as parents, we talked about our child, right? That was the moral of the story was, let's talk about Josh. What does Josh need, right? We had conversations like that. And I think the other component of our conversations, which I think could be difficult for other people that were involved in our life to hear this part, but that checking in on the other person's mental health, right? Getting to know, like, how are you as a human, not only as a parent to our child, but how are you, and I think sometimes people might see that as overstepping a boundary.
No, I could see that, but just kind of to tag along on that is like, you know, the term happy wife, happy life, just translating it into co-parenting, a happy parent creates a happy child.
Right.
So that, it's almost, not, it's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there were many times that I think that in our conversations, like during the check-in, if I was going to school during the time that I was raising Josh, and if we needed to change our schedule in any way because of that or other life happening, we had that relationship.
Communication too. Communication was very important.
Yeah.
And we accepted that the relationship was over, so it made it so much easier.
Correct.
That I can't reiterate that enough.
Right.
In dealing with, making a positive co-parenting experience.
Yes, 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 yes. And so just to tackle like the other dynamics that have gone on in our lives over the years, I have been married, I am separated, I'm divorced. I have two adult stepchildren that also were a part of Joshua's life, and that in itself added its own dimension of love and also difficulty.
Correct. Sure.
Yeah. Where have you been over the past few years? What else do you bring to this situation?
After we broke up, I got engaged to a person that I lived with at the time, and she brought a different dynamic to Josh's life as well. She had two grown children herself, um, and after that, obviously, I went and had another child, Jaden, who I love dearly. And although we don't have a perfect, it's the word I'm looking for, a playbook on how to raise a child. Every child is different, and every co-parenting situation is different. But this is our situation has helped dramatically in my new situation.
Yeah. Jaden is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say, even after all of all the years, Josh was already in college when Jaden came into the world.
Right.
To see Josh and him together is pretty amazing. From someone standing on the outside looking in, I just love to watch them, and their relationship is just so beautiful.
So genuine and pure, right?
Yeah, like there's real love there. So it's amazing. It's amazing to see.
Right.
And I think going back to my two stepchildren who are men now living life, and that was one thing that I really learned from them, that they, the boys really loved each other, and
that doesn't always apply, but I'm sure that was something that you created in your own home.
Yeah, it was something that my ex-husband and I we worked on a lot. It was definitely an interesting dynamic. Okay, so the things that we said, just to recap: forgiveness, acceptance, and healing. Right?
Having that common cause.
Yeah. All right.
Common denominator,
I think something we should do, because I think this will lead the conversation further in some of the things that we're thinking about covering, is go into some of our questions. Okay. So we have Joan from Far Rockaway. She sent in a question asking, when you're dating someone, do you encourage the child to call the boyfriend dad?
When you say dating, you mean a relationship, right? Is that understood? Or
it says boyfriend. So I guess there are some questions that are coming up for us too. But calling a boyfriend dad, what is your just immediate gut response?
So, I think every situation is different. I wouldn't force a child to do that, because sometimes the other child has a dad in their life. Now, using our situation from our past, Joshua was already older, that he knew who his dad was, right? So if on the flip side of that, if a child is fatherless, whether he's no longer in the picture, or is probably deceased, or things of that nature, then I would, depending on how solid the relationship is, then of course, every boy or every mom or every daughter needs a father figure. So that's what I'll say. Every situation is different.
Yeah. One thing that I'll say for true transparency, and I know really created a lot of issues behind the scenes in my marriage. I came to that relationship saying, I'm looking for a mate and a partner for me. As far as having someone that's like the dad figure, Josh already had that covered. But I think that there was a lot of denial on my part to think that this person was truly only going to be a partner to me when we were all living under the same roof. And so now in retrospect, right, hindsight is 2020, I realized that created some difficulties in a new marriage. But I agree with you. If there is someone that's called dad already in the picture, then I think having a boyfriend called dad is it's an interesting thought. And maybe, we definitely have some more questions to be able to answer that question better, perhaps. Yeah, I agree with you. You said death or the other person, the father, the biological father is not
It's not a good picture.
Yeah.
And the problem, unfortunately, statistics indicate that you know relationships do fail, especially in this modern world with social media and all. So how many dads is that child gonna call them?
Yeah.
That's what you don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're,
Yeah.
we're more damaged than good.
Yeah. Yeah. Ay, not easy. Okay, so another question that came up. This one is from Jax from Brooklyn. Um, we make this situation look so easy, as I mentioned earlier. What were 3 steps that we took um, to make our co-parenting work?
Hmm.
And I think it goes back to what we shared earlier. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I mean, you know, emotions get in the way initially after a breakup. So you have to kind of like remove those emotions and understand that parenting is what it's going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
That, you accept it, right? You have to accept it. And then both of you have to, both parents have to come to terms to, like we did, we came to terms like, this is what we're going to do for our child.
Yeah.
And we were in constant communication. Of course, we're not going to see eye to eye on everything,
Right.
but we worked through it, and
Yeah.
that's the most important, as far as in my opinion, obviously.
Yeah.
What about you?
Something that came up for us when we were planning for this week, you talked about having this confidence in your role as a parent, so that even when so you know what, I'll speak for myself. When there was a time where I remember Josh mentioning a girl's name that you were dating, and so I remember he in his innocence he mentions her name, and I remember taking a deep breath and kind of like checking myself, right? Because I think in this co-parenting role, you definitely have to often check in with yourself and say, where am I? Where am I? What am I feeling right now? How do I respond? Because then there's a little person staring up at you, looking for that response where they innocently say something about this other person. He innocently said something about her. And so I remember like taking a deep breath, and my comeback was, is she nice to you? And he immediately said, yes, she is nice to me. And that was the moment that I think I was able to say, then that's really all that's important. I was confident in my role as a mother that I knew no one else would be able to ever take my place. And even now at 22 years old, I can still say there was not going to be anyone that could take my place, even with stepmothers, stepfathers, and all of that, that I was confident in my role. So I think that's key when you
Absolutely.
involve somebody else in your life, right?
Yeah. But you got to trust the judgment of each other. I think I trusted you as far as that you were going to protect our child in every aspect, and vice versa. That trust, you know, although it's not pertaining to our relationship, it pertains to our, parenting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. Trusting the other person's judgment that whoever they're
Correct.
around is going to not hurt their kid in any way.
And to add to that, we had we were always very protective of him, of Josh, always protective, and we came from that same mentality, so that helped, because we saw eye to eye on that.
Yeah. So another question that came up is how important was finding a partner that understood our co-parenting style?
Hmm.
That's also from Jax from Brooklyn.
That's loaded.
Yeah.
Um, I'll let you touch up on that one first.
You know what? I think going back to what I just said, like, I think there was a lot of denial on my part, that I was looking for a partner and didn't realize, like, yeah, this person's going to come along for the ride, because I was married, right? So it wasn't like a boyfriend. So this person, the ex-husband, we were already, we were already engaged when he was often around Josh, and then we got married. And so I think there was a lot of denial on my part, of like, oh yeah, this person's gonna have to understand um, what goes on, or how Jay and I operate. And so I think that brought a lot of stuff in my marriage. One thing I'll say, um, like, looking back now, like, I actually like you as a human. And so so I think that adds to that. I think because we grew up together, right? Let's call it what it is. We grew up together, and I knew a lot about your story and where you have been in your life. And so there was a lot of acceptance, and like I said in episode 1, like, I knew there's no one else on this planet that was ever going to love Josh. Um,
Just as much as you.
yeah, just as much as me. And so yeah, I don't know if I've answered the question, but
I don't think so. But it's okay to digress here and there. What was the question again?
so finding a partner. So thinking about the person that you've mentioned that you were
So,
engaged to.
it was easier. I think it was easier for me in the point that, she genuinely cared for Josh, like she genuinely embraced Josh as almost as me,
Yeah.
and there was never any friction as far as like, oh, why is your son here? No, on the contrary, she actually helped me, in so many ways
Yeah.
that she, that I'm very grateful for what she's done,
Yeah.
and I'm still friends with her today because of that.
Yeah, I know that she loved Josh very much. Um, and one thing I'll say, I think you do this really well. The people who do meet Josh, like, they know that he is someone that really matters to you, and we've never had any issue where anyone that came around him treated him disrespectfully. Always had the utmost respect for him, and I think also for me, um,
No,
as the co-parent.
absolutely, definitely team effort there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, I think there was another question that came up from Miss Lopez from the Bronx. And the question was, when there's been so much turmoil in the relationship, how do you, like, where to start now that if the child, and I believe that the feedback is like that they've been in a relationship parenting their child for almost 10 years. And how do the relationship has had many ups and downs in the 9 years that the child has been on this planet, which will, in February, I believe she mentioned that it will be 10 years. Where do you start? Like, if you've had a bumpy ride all of these years, where to start? Is it too late? Do you, like, put it in the bag and say,
No, I mean, any relationship is repairable, but we have to do. I would assume that there's some adulting that has to be done on both parties. It's not a one side. Both parties have to be on the same page,
yeah,
and you almost have to say, all right, whatever has happened in the past happened in the past, right? Let's just put that to the back burner. So, but that's only going to happen if what you say is what you're gonna do. So, the trust is gonna be built on your word, little by little. And then if as your actions speak, then you can actually, all right, we're progressing, we're progressing, we're progressing,
Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah. Get to know each other on another level. I think as humans, last time I think we talked about our core values. Like maybe that's a place to start. Find out a person's core values to see like who are you as a human. I'm talking about the co-parents have to get to know each other almost like on a different level within keeping boundaries. Again, like we mentioned, I think in episode 1 we talked about like if there's been some toxic things that have happened in your relationship, we're not saying you go back and like try to. No, we said to get lawyers involved and things like that. I mean, it's unfortunate that's the way it is sometimes. But we're not saying to put yourself in any danger, but get to know this other person. And I think in my mind, now that the child, and this Miss Lopez's question specifically, this child is 10 years old, all right? So the child is able to share if there is anything out of line happening, right? So it's like,
For himself.
say it again.
The child can speak for himself or herself.
Exactly. Which I think makes it easier.
Of course.
Right? Than if the child is an infant or very young and can't speak for themselves or doesn't understand certain things. All right, so I think one question that we're going to save for the next time is really thinking about discipline, talking about parenting styles. That was another question that came up from Jax in Brooklyn. Thinking about parenting and disciplining. And I think maybe we can go through child development because I think what we started out doing when the child was young looked very different when he was a teenager to, yeah. And then he went off to college and we just hope that we raised a good human that he is able to figure out this life.
Can you support yourself yet?
Maybe one day soon. Anyway, thank you all for being with us. Please, please, please send in questions. As you can see, we are willing to be vulnerable and open with you all. We're willing to tackle really difficult topics. Anything else, Jay, you want to say before we say?
Not at all. Thanks again. See you guys next week. And keep on referring us to your brother, sister, mother, everybody. It doesn't matter. We need all the views we can get.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.